Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Lumclean Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcleanEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
A very good morning to you. David Hollywood in for Ronan Berry. Congratulations to Ronan. Picked up bronze at the IMROs for this show, Saturday View, where we look to platform the views of the community and, of course, yourself. 083 3010 103 if you want to get in touch with me this morning. We've got a jam-packed show to look forward to. We're featuring the man who's going to turn 90 at the end of a 160-kilometre walk. He's trying to raise money for those who are without. We're going to be platforming and featuring a school that have produced talented youngsters and those expressing their talents on the world stage. Moate Community School have sent another team of students to the Junk Kouture final, and they might be able to tell us what the secret is and something that we could pass on to the younger generation because they seem to have cracked it. First this morning, though, we are turning our attention to a story that ultimately started in the early 70s. We're revisiting the Beltrubet bombing in Cavan of 1972. A documentary called An Anatomy of a Massacre is being shown in the Esker Theatre in Tullamore on Friday, this coming Friday. That is generally about the Dublin Monaghan bombings of 1974, but it does feature the Beltrubet bombing. And of course, Patrick Stanley was a 16-year-old from Clara, one of two people killed in that explosion. The Justice for the Forgotten group have been campaigning for justice for these incidents, for which nobody has ever been held responsible over the course of the 50-odd years since they've happened. I'm very glad to say that Patrick's sister, Susan Stanley, joins us on Saturday View this morning. Susan, thanks so much for taking our call.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. The fact that this documentary is being shown in Tullamore and there's still people telling the story, that must give you and your family some degree of consolation that this isn't being forgotten and ultimately it can't be forgotten.
No, well, it certainly can't be forgotten by us. And our mother used to call it the forgotten bomb. When she'd look at TV and there'd be the Dublin Monaghan bombings would be on different programmes. But yes, Beltrubet was never viewed on anything. So it's really nice to see people keeping this alive because it's still alive with us as a family. And, you know, people like the staff of the Awfully Independent who, you know, do a little piece on him just about nearly every year in remembrance of him is really nice that it's not being forgotten. So it's great to keep it in the spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about Patrick. What kind of boy was he? A young man?
Well, he was only 16 when he was killed. I never knew him. Mammy was pregnant with me when he died. So I'm told he was beautiful, kind. He was very, very kind to his brothers and sisters. He had a job, and when he'd get a few pounds or a few shillings every week, he'd always buy something nice and bring it home to them. So from bringing sisters round on his bike when they made their first communion to see people, you know, he was a wonderful young person, I'm told.
Yeah. And from the family's perspective, as you've alluded to there, this story never drifts from the front of your mind. Talk to us about the kind of impact it has over the course of at this point, a couple of generations. It does still live front and centre in how you feel and think and reflect on history.
Yes, it does. And you know, we've often been told, oh, just let it go. But it's very hard to let something go and especially when our parents were alive, you know, that day, you know, the 28th of December was a horrific day. And it was, you know, 3 days after Christmas. It's very hard to forget something that happened at such a family time. And he was the eldest of 9 children or 8 children at the time, or 9 children at the time. And it's devastating for something. And they were all so young. Like the next brother to me was only 3 when he died. And then, like, for a group of teenagers to lose somebody who was very, very important in their lives was devastating for them. And it's very... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, Susan, in a lot of ways, it's a loss you can't quantify, because it's about the relationship and the time that's been robbed from the family and your relatives and you. So the grief is probably that much more difficult to process, considering what's been taken away.
Very much so. Very much so. Our dad, on just a couple of hours before he passed away, he asked us never to forget Paddy. Not that we would have, but it like that was the last thing that he pretty much said to us was, don't forget Paddy. He fought tirelessly his whole life to find out who killed him. Not only has nobody ever been brought to justice, but no group has ever stood up and said, we planted that bomb. And there was 3 bombs that night. And nobody has ever said, we did that. So while it has always been labelled a war crime, the fact that nobody admitted to it, it really wasn't a war crime to us. It was just devastating murder, unfortunately.
Susan, you're a member of the Justice for the Forgotten group, which was set up in 1996. Tell us about the work that the group does.
I have to say they're tireless in everything that they do. We became involved with them in about, I'm going to say, 22. That was following on from Fran McNulty did a documentary on Beltrubet. And he called it The Forgotten Bomb, the piece that he did. And people from Justice for the Forgotten had heard it, and, it became to the forefront then for them. And we got a call. I went up and met them on the first time and told them the story, came home, discussed it with Mammy and Daddy, and then we would go to meetings. Daddy would always try and make every meeting that was on, popping up on the train. And they never... Mammy was an amazing woman who could forgive, never forget, but she could forgive. She had that in her. But unfortunately, Daddy lived with that guilt an awful lot more than her. And maybe it was different for her at the time because she had young children, but not for Daddy because somebody had taken his firstborn. So he lived with that. I'm not going to say harder because both of them felt the same. We'd often go home and they'd be sitting in silence. And you just knew that that's what was going on in their heads. How most of us found out how he was actually killed was they had saved all his mass cards and paper clippings, and they used to keep it in a brown box. And the brown box was locked, and my older brothers and sisters used to sneak into their room, and somebody would keep an eye out to make sure Mammy and Daddy didn't see them. And that's how they found out that, how he was killed. They were just told, bear in mind, it is 52 years ago now, coming up to this Christmas. That's how they found out how he was killed. And again, that long ago, you didn't have counsellors in school. We didn't have Justice for the Forgotten. We didn't have lots of things that we have the support of now. And then 4 years ago, there was another documentary done by RTE. And then following on from that documentary, we were very, very lucky in the fact that the Garda Commissioner Assistant Garda Commissioner at the time requested a report on it. And then following on from that, it was decided that there would be a full investigation into the bombing. So that's an ongoing thing, and that's really good, because at the start of that, when it was decided that there was going to be an investigation, the Stanleys and the O'Reillys were asked, what is your conclusion? What do you want from this investigation? Because nobody might ever be brought to justice for this. Mm. And I said, well, for us, we just want to know who did it. We really just want to know. We want somebody to stand up and say, whatever organisation it was, that, look, this is what we did. We planted that bomb. Because it's quite poignant that on the 28th of December, the Feast of the Holy Innocents, that was the day that two young children, one of them making a phone call home in a phone box, and the other one buying a bag of chips with her brother sat outside in a car. And when you lose two children on the side of the road, that is a devastating thing to happen. There was I don't know if anybody knows Beltrubet, but there's just a street and a square, and in the top of the square there was petrol pumps. And the man that owned those, Paddy O'Reilly, after the bomb, he came down the street to see what was after happening. And he took Paddy out of the phone box. I won't say how he described him, but his first time to meet Mammy, he told her that he took him out of the phone box and said the act of contrition in his ear. And that act of kindness from him gave Mammy an awful lot of solace. Yeah. But that took nearly 30 years for that meeting to even happen. And it's like, because we were down in Offaly, so far removed from the troubles, that it was just pushed to one side. Really, really, it was just pushed to one side. And there was only us, with Dublin Monaghan, I'm not taking away from their grief, but they had so many other people around them who were affected by this. And they had other bombings in Dublin, Sackville Place. There was a few around that time there, but we were left on our own in Clara.
Yeah, and as you said, it's something that your parents would have struggled with a great deal, considering the distance both in people's minds and geographically from when and where this happened. As we've been saying this morning, Anatomy of a Massacre is being shown in the Esker Arts Centre at 8 o'clock on Friday. That's October 18th. Susan Stanley, I really appreciate you taking the time. And just to say, look, your credit to the job that your parents did raising your family, considering the grief that they shouldered. Thanks so much for joining us on Saturday View this morning.
You're very welcome, and thanks a million for highlighting it as well. It's greatly appreciated.
Susan Stanley there from Clara, reflecting on the loss of Patrick Stanley in 1972. Once again, that film is being shown in the Esker Arts Theatre at 8 o'clock. A huge thanks to her for taking the time to talk to us this morning. We're going to change gears next, and we're going to touch base with a man who's walking over 160 kilometres at the age of 90 to raise money for those in need.
Saturday View on Midlands 103, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. lumcloonenergy.com.
Next on the programme, we are turning to a man from the National Famine Museum in Strokestown Park, the founder of it, and he is currently walking the entire 165 kilometres of the National Famine Way in remembrance of Strokestown's missing 1,490 famine emigrants. Jim Callery is raising funds for immigrants in this country, and I'm very glad to say he joins us on Saturday View this morning. Jim, it's been a long road so far. Tell us first where you are at the moment.
Well, we will be leaving to head for Moy Valley we're hoping we're at some bridge between Riverstown and Hill of Down. And we're planning to hit the Hill of Down today, and hopefully tomorrow we will be in Moy Valley, and then we'll straight run into Dublin, the road that I've driven for the last 70 odd years. Now, first of all, I'd like to compliment Waterways Ireland and all the councils along the way for the huge improvements and the improvements in hand at the moment that they're making along this route. The last time I walked it, this time there are major improvements. There are places for bicycles, there are places for people when they get a bit tired to sit. It's huge, and they should be complimented on the effort. And I would have to mention my own daughter Caroline, who has been very involved in this as well. Though you should never praise yourself or your own people. Anyway, this I would hope we've gone way past our highest thought that we might raise. So Caroline, who's very involved and has walked a lot of the way with me, said she put in 25,000 as a target, and I said, you're mad, and we won't raise the colour of this. So I looked at it last night when I was going to sleep, and it was 31,000 odd. The generosity of people is unbelievable. I mean, like the first places we stayed in the Abbey View in Abbey Shrule, a lovely guest house. When I went to pay in the morning, the lady said, I wouldn't dream of charging you for what you're doing. And then in Riverstown, we went in to get 99 ice creams. And what the word has spread. The woman said, we're not going to charge you for that. And I was in Mordens last night. We were to meet somebody in the Hill of Down, and I couldn't buy a drink. The first thing was I ordered a pint for myself and Mark with me, and like the man put up 2 pints in the counter and wouldn't take any money. And I tried to buy another drink, and the next thing there were 2 more put up in the counter. The girl behind the bar said that these people over there bought that for you. So
that's
incredible.
I mean,
the generosity is unbelievable, and what is coming in funds will enable us now to hopefully give more money to the deserving immigrants. Now, there is terrible problems, and this, I think, the root of the problems at the moment of what's happening with the immigrants coming in is we were a country of people emigrating, and we had no experience of people coming in. So hopefully we'll get to terms with that. Hopefully, it's a kind of a misunderstanding along the way, and maybe a certain lack of cooperation, and that's solely because we were a country that always were going out. I'm 90 and I hit Dublin in the 15th, and like I lived through a time when the population of the 26 counties was a 2,600,000 or 2,800,000. I can't remember.
Yeah, the country has transformed over those years, and as you say, there's a lot of people coming into the country, and you've decided to take this challenge on to support them. And as you said there, the money that has been raised is actually unbelievable. Like when I checked it earlier this week, it was around 25,000. I opened it up this morning, it's now 31,000, and it goes to show where people's hearts really lie. Talk to us about how this decision in your mind formed to walk the famine way, to raise this money. Where did you get that drive from?
Well, I'll explain to you. I have 4 children. I actually had 5, but a little baby died at 6 months. And I have 8 grandchildren, and now I have 4 great-grandchildren and another coming along in the beginning of November. And they were all saying, what do we do, where do we bring you, etc. And I was saying, I was just thinking. So I sat down one evening and I said, they'll spend a bloody fortune on me. and it'll end up in a huge piss-up on a party. And suddenly I said to myself, Christ, I'll walk to Dublin and for my birthday, for charity, and I'll tell the whole lot of them that I want no present at all, to whatever they were going to give me, to give it to send it into the charity money-wise. And that's where that came from.
Okay, and if anyone wants to support what Jim's doing, the GoFundMe page is there, 90 years of walking, showing us the way. Jim, I just touched on it there. You mentioned it yourself. Your 90th birthday is on a Tuesday week, the 15th of October. You set off over a week ago. There's a lot of walking involved in what you're doing. I've interviewed quite a lot of people about long hikes and this type of thing that they do. There's always sort of physical aspects to this. So how are you feeling taking on the distances you're doing each day?
I'm okay. The first day, the first walk from Strokestown, we walked 20 kilometres and we stayed in Keenan's, a very nice hotel in Tarmanbarry. And it was a bad day, and the next day was horrific. The next day from the harbour was wind, rain, everything. And by the time we reached Keenan, I said, I'm not able to do this.
Oh.
And that evening, my grandson rang me. He said, I'd be there in the morning to collect you. He arrived. Couldn't have met a better day. Walked to Ballyman. Mood improved with me. And since then, I had to go back then to the opening of the Black and New offices in Westford Scania. There were some of the very important people coming over from Sweden. And so I lost a day there. And on Monday last, for the 4 days, we made very, very good progress because there were lovely days. Now, yesterday I had a dental appointment and I lost a lot of the day, but I got in 4 or 5 kilometres. So I'm hoping to hit the hill of Down. And very kindly, then there's people ringing me to say, they'll walk with you because you'd have to have 2 cars and you could end nowhere. Because you have to leave a car where you left and a car where you're going to walk to. And you could have no service and you mightn't be able to ring a taxi. And very kindly, there's a man just after ring me this morning and say, Jim, you might want to go to Mass. And he said, I'll be up with you, Jerry Taylor, at 9 o'clock in the morning. And he was a teacher and he taught in Mullingar and around this area, so he knows it. So he says, I'll walk with you. It could be a bad day. He says, I've looked up the forecast. So, I mean, the generosity of people, it's unbelievable. I'm almost 90 years old. And when I look back on the Ireland of 72 years ago when I started off, at 17, it's unrecognizable. I mean, we're a wealthy country. All the hotels in Mullingar, except for 2 nights, were full. In the midweek, we were finding it. I'm in Johnstown now, near Enfield, and to get anywhere to stay, it's amazing. The country is on fire. I mean, you talk about, and there's people sleeping out, remember. I mean, there's something amazing. Now, I'm not talking about people who are running from the law or gangsters coming into other countries, because I think that there should be funding put towards a very close monitoring of who's what are coming in. And I think the deserving people should be really looked after, and the others should be turned back wherever they enter the country and dispatched back to where they came from.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get a great reception, remember, during the famine. And I remember London of the 50s, and I can tell you something, we weren't altogether wanted over there either.
No, it's one of the time-honoured trademarks of the immigration dynamic is that suspicion of the other coming in. But maybe, as has been illustrated by your walk, Jim, humans still retain the capacity to surprise us in wonderful ways. And I think you've managed to bring that story to our listeners this morning, and hopefully all the way to the National Emigration Epic Museum in Dublin on October 15th, your ultimate destination. A massive congratulations on raising over €30,000 for the cause. A massive congratulations for taking on the walk that you've done so far. And we hope that the wind and the sun is on your back on the way into Dublin.
Well, now, just to tell you, there's a lot of other people have contacted us, and I've no idea where this will end. I have no idea where the money coming in is going to end. I wouldn't even guess. Caroline said to me, we better put on the website or wherever. And I said, I haven't a notion where, because there's quite a number of other people that have contacted me and saying, we're going to put in, look at all the money that came in anonymously. People putting in like little sums and very large sums anonymously. I mean, at 90 years old, I'm still learning.
Jim, you've been great with your time. Thanks again.
Well, thank you very, very much indeed.
Yeah, the very best of luck to Jim, and a huge congratulations to him so far. Hopefully the weather isn't quite as bad as it's forecast. Next, we're going to be checking in with Moate Community School. They've had more success on the world stage. The Junk Kouture finalists once again.
Saturday View on Midlands 103 with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. lumcloonenergy.com.
The Junk Kouture World Finals will be coming up very shortly, and I'm very glad to say the Midlands will have representation from Moate Community School once again. So huge congratulations to Emma Kinahan, Lucy Champ and Emma Keane for their design. Is a remarkable design as well, using alpaca wool. This is not the first time Moate Community School have been represented at the Junk Kouture World Finals. They seem to have a habit of producing fantastic designers and designs. To that end, I'm very glad to introduce Tom Lowry, Moate Community School Principal. Tom, obviously it's great for Emma and Lucy and Emma Keane for all making the World Finals again. But for the school itself to have such a great track record in sending these talented young people onto the world stage, it must give a great sense of pride to everyone involved in the school.
Yes, good morning, and absolutely, or good afternoon, I should say. Absolutely, it's a fantastic achievement for the students and for the teacher involved yet again. And I suppose generally for the school community, success. It's great to see students achieving. It recognises the work that they have done, and it also shows others coming along, what's achievable, and that hard work pays off.
Last year's winning design was all about sort of the reuse of plastic, and it was a remarkable dress that was put together. This year, Emma, Lucy and Emma have put together a design called Alpalcalypse.
Yes.
And it's
a bit of a mouthful.
It's a really striking image, though. Alpaca wool and synthetic leather. I imagine if you see it in person, it's even more striking.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. And I guess, last year's design and this year's design, they're so completely different. And I guess that's the concept here, that, you can take an idea, and these girls have been thinking about this. So they have been, one of the girls, they have alpacas. So they have been saving this wool from different colors and harvesting it, if you like, over the years, so that when their time came to become involved with Junk Kouture in our school, which is a transition year program, they brought that to the table. And then they had to come up with the design, and that's the creative element, of these three great girls. So, it's a fantastic design. And as you say, up close, it looks even better.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of the finalists that'll be sent to represent Ireland after the Dublin City final. They're all incredible. What do you think it means for young people to go through this experience, as you've outlined there, a real project that they have to put planning into, they have to put their own time into it as well, and all of their inspiration, and then to have that validated on a local, national and then international stage at that time when we remember what it was like to be an adolescent, or that we've got relatives, children, nieces and nephews who are going through it. It must mean so much to their development.
Absolutely. And these young people are just fantastic. Another important aspect, I believe, of Junk Kouture is showing students how to work together. So these three girls are very much a team. I know Lucy is wearing the dress, and that's what you see, and that's who you see the dress on. But the other two girls involved, Em and Emma, are so they're a real. It's a shared victory, if you like, a shared achievement, and working as a team, building confidence, resilience. All of those important aspects of personalities and characters that we value, it's a phenomenal experience for those girls.
Over the course of the last couple of years, I've worked on stories around the Junk Kouture Finals and also the BT Young Scientist Awards as well. And something that jumped out at me over the course of going through the entries and the winners and all of that is how prevalent the name of Moate Community School tends to be. So, Tom, I have to ask, what's your secret to this success?
What's the secret? Well, it isn't, it isn't rocket science. The secret, I believe, for a school like ours, first of all, we're a community school, we're a large school of over 900 students. So, it's about nurturing those students, and it's about really the teachers involved bringing their passion. So Pamela Keogh bringing her passion to Junk Kouture. I mean, that's what she does. She's an art teacher in school, but a huge part of her contribution to the school is continuing to come up with new ideas and helping students to develop their creativity and come up with their own ideas. Moate Cusack, Irene O'Sullivan, Margaret Mandel involved in the BT Young Scientist, they do the very same thing. They're presently working. They start that work. They actually start the work before the end, of the previous year. Okay. So as we move in, as we started this year in September, our teachers were already working on BT and on Junk Kouture for the forthcoming year. So it's really, to me, it's a blend of teachers who are hugely passionate and generous with their time and completely committed, along with the enthusiasm of our students who just want to get involved, and they see it works and they see what other students have achieved and they want the same. And isn't that great? Because it shows you that it's achievable. Like last year, we were the World Designer of the Year in Junk Kouture. That's the first time it happened for our school. And, I hope it's not going to be the last.
Well, you'd have to suspect it won't be, because you've touched on something there that I think is so important as well, is whatever about having role models for young people in terms of teachers or other adults, for their peers to be their role models. Like, absolutely. We know that they're really the people that they listen to. So for, your school to have that success, the subsequent years coming through, it's going to motivate them and inspire them.
Absolutely. And, as you said, that is the key. It's about showing students what you can actually achieve when you prepare, when you work hard, when you work as a team. And all those components come together with the guidance of our staff. There's a secret of success, And as I said, every school, can do this with the right support and with the right ideas,
What does it take in terms of support from, say, the faculty's perspective, from a principal's perspective? You've been very correct in highlighting that without the teachers in art and science and so on, these achievements couldn't be realised. But by the same token, you as a principal and your colleagues need to create the space and the culture there that allows this to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, that is true. We're also, in terms of music and choirs and orchestra, we're running a school musical this year. So we have, I hugely value the arts and, the benefit of, and obviously we're a sporting school as well. So there's a whole area of sports development that's ongoing as well. But I suppose really what I'm really talking about is the value of extracurricular activity, work outside the classroom, where students work with each other, work with teachers. So, for me as a principal, I have to value that first and foremost. And then what else would you say? I suppose, there's always a question of finance and that these things do, cost. There's a certain cost. And I feel that's a very good use of school resources to make sure that students get the opportunities that they should to be involved in these initiatives.
It underlines as well then where there's a will, there's a way when it comes to those details.
Oh, absolutely. And, the teachers involved that I would have referred to and, other teachers, they would always fight for their students. They would always look for everything they can, to ensure that they get these opportunities. And that's important, They're not afraid to come to me looking for something. They do it on a regular basis. And I think that's important that, they know that if you have a good idea, if you want to do something, if we think it benefits students, and as a management team, myself and I have 3 deputy principals, we would hugely value, and encourage teachers to come to us with ideas. And if we can help to bring them to fruition, of course, that's what we're paid to do.
Do you think, and I don't want you to speak out against or anything like that, but from the Department of Education's perspective, at this specific angle of extracurricular activity that we could get in the future, maybe more state support in promoting these kinds of activities that are still completely educational, but not necessarily on what people would imagine in the typical syllabus?
No, and remember, they're not part of teachers' hours. So, the success and the provision of all these activities in schools depends on the goodwill of teachers. And I mean, there's for students, it's a benefit, but it also benefits teachers. They get the opportunity to work with students outside of the classroom. But it is quite demanding. It is quite demanding on teachers. And that's my only concern really is, as you provide and as you create other opportunities for students to be involved in activities outside the curriculum, you are depending on the work of our teachers. And, sometimes people become exhausted and sometimes, they get tired. So I think it would be important for the department to come up with maybe ways that they might encourage teachers to continue that good work, because it won't happen. It won't happen without that.
No, and if we're to attract teachers to the role, generally speaking, going forward, quality of life is such an important aspect. And we know teachers view the job as a vocation, not just as a professional career, as it were. They do it because they want to teach and they want to help young people. So the motivation is already there. And I imagine
these teachers are in school at weekends, over midterm. For the BT Young Scientists, that's all happening at the beginning of January. So our science teachers are in school over the Christmas holidays. These are things that I don't think people fully realise and understand. And, it's just the success is really a testament to the commitment.
Yeah, and when it comes to, say, teachers' welfare, it doesn't need to be a whole lot better. It just needs to be a little bit easier and a little bit better to possibly make all the difference when it comes to how they feel about the work they're doing.
And recognised that if the department were to recognise the work that is done in schools in a voluntary basis every day, day after day, because you can run a school based on, with whatever resources you have. But if you want to have real success in a school, you really depend on the additional work that teachers do within schools.
Well, there's no shortage of that being done at Moate Community School.
Yeah, thankfully.
Alpacalypse is the remarkable design that's going to the World Junk Kouture Final by Emma Kinahan, Lucy Champ and Emma Keane. Tom, tell us, the World Final, is it early next year from what I understand?
We're not sure. So Junk Kouture haven't confirmed this with us. There's always a little bit of, a few variables at play, I think, when the World Final is organised. So last year it was in Monaco, previous year was Abu Dhabi. We were present at both. But I would imagine if it's to be a repeat of other years, it'll be sometime February, I think.
And no hint of where it'll be.
No idea of a location.
Oh, I'm sure the girls, the anticipation about the location is a huge aspect as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, who wouldn't want to go to Monaco to an extraordinary fashion show, and to have that trip? And I suppose I really should have. It's remiss of me not to say thank you and to recognise the work of Junk Kouture, the organisation. And it does give huge support to schools, and it does, it will be funding for those three girls who are going to wherever it is they're going to, they'll be funding some of that, their accommodation and their flights. So that's hugely beneficial for schools, because that would be a huge cost on schools as well. Yeah. So they are a phenomenal organisation, and I certainly would like to pay tribute to them for all the work they do.
Yeah, between themselves and yourselves, putting the building blocks in place for really solid foundations for future generations, hopefully. Tom, massive congratulations on the success so far, and the best of luck and every success going forward with both Junk Kouture, BT Young Scientist, and generally shepherding the next generation into adulthood.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no small job on his hands either, bringing forth the next generation. But Moate Community School, among a number of schools across the region, are just doing fantastic work in that respect. And a big congratulations to everyone involved in Alpacalypse. Hopefully the World Finals go well. That's our lot on Saturday View. Lorraine McCormack, the powerhouse of broadcasting, is up next after the news at 11 o'clock.